Hi guys, welcome to Truth and Dare podcast, my first episode. The Bible is the truth, do you dare live out that truth? That's pretty much my catchphrase for this podcast. I'm going to be talking about things going on in the world. I hate to use the word current events because it sounds like it's for old people, but like what's going on in the world, what's on the internet, and I'm going to give you my standpoint from my biblical worldview. And I feel like I should explain that because before we even get into this, you're going to have to understand what a biblical worldview is, because this podcast is for everyone, like for Christians, and some Christians might not even know what a biblical worldview is. Like I've had one, but I didn't know the name for it until I actually went to school. So some people don't know what that is, and I also want people who are not Christian or don't identify with anything like that to be able to come and to watch this podcast. So I'm going to give you a little bit of like a cheat sheet so you understand like where I'm coming from. So I wrote some stuff down so I wouldn't forget some key points to talk about what a biblical worldview is. So it's pretty much believing in absolute moral truth. Like we believe absolute moral truths exist based on the infallible word of God. So pretty much I believe that, and I know that the Bible is true. Okay? You might not agree with that, but that's where my view comes from, right? So I believe it's absolute truth. I believe there's one God who never changes. His word never changes. He created the world, and there's a right and wrong. He tells us what right and wrong is, and it never changes even when the world does. God is outside of it, and that's why he's holy. He's set apart from the world, which is why we're also, like as Christians, called to be set apart and be different. The Bible says we should be aliens to this world, right? So yeah, that is the Bible helps me, is like my way of seeing reality, and how I make daily decisions. Like people will go, oh, what's your like opinion on this? Like, what's your advice? And I'll go, well, the Bible says, and they'll go, no. Like, what do you think? No, that is what I think. Like, quite literally, that is what I think. Like, when I decide I'm gonna do something, I think, what does the Bible say about that? What does God is, what the Bible says is what God says. It's God's written word. But I'm just like, what does God think about that? What does the Bible say before I do that? And when I give advice, I always try my best to make it biblical. And if in the chance that I'm not, I literally say, okay, this is not biblical, but you know what I mean? Like I will go, this probably isn't what God would say, but most of the time, like that is how I go about things. And I have a family member who says like, stop, you don't always have to talk to people about religion. Like let people get to know you first. This is me. This literally is my life. I was called to it, and this is also how I choose to live. Like to just I'm stuttering. To live the way God calls us to. And of course I have my faults. I have my spiritual ruts, where I'm living in sin. But by what I'm saying, I mean like my life is still about God. Like even when I'm living in a rut, I still think about God. I still think about what God thinks about what I'm doing, even if I don't necessarily do that thing all the time, because I'm a human. We rebel, but I'm just being honest. Like I never want to get on here and be fake, guys. Like that's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to get on a high horse. This is going to be like a relatable podcast, guys. I'm just a girl. I want to give everyone relatability and maybe even encourage others I know some people are afraid to be Christian because they think you can't be young and do it and still have fun and all that. So I'm here to tell you, no, like look at me. I'm just a girl. I have piercings. Can you see my nose? I have piercings. Like I have tattoos, just 2 small ones. But still, there's more to come. I'm a normal girl. I'm just a girl, okay? I'm just a girl. So we're going to talk about a lot of things in this podcast. Actually, this episode 1. Episode 2 was filmed before this, actually. I had really bad camera quality, so I'm not sure if it's going to be available on YouTube or just on Spotify. But the audio is also bad, so I don't know what I'm going to do with that. But that one is actually going to be about abortion. Like, I'm already hopping in, guys. I'm hopping in. This is going to be about abortion. But this first episode, I just want you guys to get to know me and stuff and get to know what God has done in my life. So that's what the first episode right now is going to be about. I'm just going to share my testimony and who I am. So here we go. Guys, first of all, thank you for watching, but my name is Amber. I'm 18. I'll be 19 in August. I'm saying a lot. Sorry, guys. I know you shouldn't do that. So I became a Christian when I was 15. I think 14 to 15. So when I had to be 14 when this started. So when I was 14, I was in my freshman year. This was like 2019. I was in my freshman year of high school, and I grew up with, let me start over. Sorry, guys. I grew up with Christian parents. Like, if you're African American, you understand that a lot of us have like some type of Christian influence in our life, right? So I grew up believing in Jesus and respecting that belief. I went to a Baptist church, a Black Baptist church, here and there, not all the time. Like, there was times where my mom and I would go a lot, and times we wouldn't go at all. But I knew Jesus died on the cross and he rose again, and that's what Easter was about. But I didn't really know much. I didn't know why or what the significance was. I was just like, well, he's, I respect it. He's God. And my mom would pray. I wouldn't say that she is like what we would call like a devout Christian, and I love my mom. I love my mom, but it's just I did not grow up with that. You know what I mean? Like, my mom was a very independent woman, so she taught me to be independent. It's just me and her. It was always just me and her growing up. So yeah, and my grandma is pretty spiritual too. Like, she believes in Jesus, and she would pray a lot, but we just don't we don't have the same type of faith, if that makes sense. So, yeah, but I had a pretty great upbringing, but that's not the point. Let's get into God. So I will go to, how like you go to church sometimes with your friends, like if you have a sleepover that you're going to church in the morning with them. So I remember one time I went to church with my friend, and we talked about the verse. I forgot. I think it's in Matthew where, I forgot which disciple was like, how many times should I forgive my brother? And 77 times. And Jesus was like, I tell you, 77 times 7 or something like that. And sorry, guys, but I was like thinking that that's how many times God was going to forgive me. Like, I would count, man. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know what everything, like, what is considered a sin, like, all of it. Like, how am I going to know how many sins I've done? Like, oh my gosh, like, I used to think that to get to heaven, you have to be like a good person, whatever that meant. And I thought that you had to do like a certain amount of good deeds to outweigh your bad deeds, which is kind of like the Islam type of view. But I used to think that, like, I used to count how many good deeds I do. Well, I fed the homeless one time for service learning for school. Like, that counts, right? And I used to have nightmares about going to hell. Like, y'all, I was scared because I didn't know where I was going. And it's a time when I was in middle school where I like hated God and I wanted to be atheist, but I wasn't an atheist. So yeah, my freshman year, like, I guess I started thinking about it some more, and I came across this video. I think his name is Bill or Billy Wise or Wisner. He has a testimony claiming that he had been to hell and he had saw hell. And I watched it. I remember my mom walking past my room and was like, "What is that craziness you're watching?" I was like, "Be quiet, Mom. Like, I'm watching this." So he did talk about Jesus being the only way. And at the end of the video, he said, if you want to get saved, pray with me. And I did, like, desperately I did. But I didn't really know what I was praying for. And I remember going to school that day, my freshman year, and showing this girl in my class, like, oh my gosh, like, look at this video, like, we need to get right, like I don't want to go to hell, like, look how terrible it sounds, like, look what's gonna happen to us, but I still didn't really understand, but I never forgot about it. So then quarantine happens, right? And I was so against getting TikTok. Like, I was like, Instagram is better. I'm not getting TikTok. My friends like, whatever. One day I finally download TikTok, and Christian TikTok became huge. So I saw a lot of videos sharing the gospel. And when I heard that Jesus wanted to have a relationship with me, and it was as simple as believing in that, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. So I said the sinner's prayer. And at the time, guys, like, I thought that was what was saving me. I still believe like I was saved then, but there was some things that had to change about my views. Like, a lot of things I learned about God were from TikTok. And looking back, now that I'm more educated in the Bible, I see that some of them were not true. But yeah. So I grew up with my mom as a principal. I forgot to mention that, right? And I used to go to her school in middle school. Every day after school, I would take the bus to my mom's school. And she had a guidance counselor in there named Miss Worley. Miss Worley now because she's married, but it was Miss Johnson, or Miss Linnea is her first name. And she would babysit me sometimes too. So she was a devout Christian. She loved the Lord. And at the time, like when I was younger, I was like, oh, like these devout Christians are weird. They're weird. Like, oh, people don't let their kids celebrate Halloween. It's not that serious. Like, that's too much. Like, I respect it, but I can never do it. Like, I didn't think you had to like live your life for God. I never even heard about that before. Really, like being a devout Christian. Like, I thought that just meant you were like a weird nun or like extra. Like, I didn't know that God calls us to give him our life. So she used to talk about God and stuff, and I'll go, oh, she's crazy. Like, and she was talking about things she believed God was going to bless her with, and I'll go, that's not going to happen. That's impossible. But then here I go. Once I hear about the gospel on TikTok, I'm calling her up, and I'm like, hey, like, I want to be a Christian. I want to be saved. I think I just got saved. So can you help me? And she's like, okay, do you have a Bible? So I pull it out because I have like a little purple sparkly princess Bible that I got as a kid with my name in it and everything. But it was either an NKJV or a KJV. And she's like, let's just start with Genesis. Start with Adam and Eve. And of course, everyone knows Adam and Eve, but I had to read it. So I get into it. I can't even get past one sentence, guys. I didn't understand that translation at all. So she said, okay, I got you. She sent me my very first, like, not my very first Bible, but like my very first, like, Bible that I was reading. Like my very first Bible that was important to me. It was the NLT. I don't read the translation anymore, but that was very good for me because I think the NLT makes it simple to understand, especially to a new Christian or someone who's not a Christian. Like, I think, like, I like to use it when I evangelize sometimes. So I started reading it, and I think it was like once a week she would like do a lesson with me in the Bible, and that was like the beginning of my journey. And in that time, you know, I started to realize that my friends weren't going down the right path. So I used to tell them about it, and I made a lot of mistakes. Being a new Christian, like, I definitely pushed them away. I absolutely take accountability for that. And to this day, I feel so sorry for that. And to this day, I want to tell them, you know, which I'm a little afraid to, but I know I should at some point. But there were some things that like, in some ways I was persecuted, you know what I mean? Like, they definitely got mad at me about some things, like one time about Halloween. So I ended up just like kind of having to get new friends, and God blessed me with some people at my school. They were like, I ended up making like a Christian page where I would share stuff on Instagram, which is probably honestly like terrible because I was a new Christian, barely knew anything. But I was just trying to help people out. Like, I really wanted people to come to Christ. Like, now that I've seen salvation, I wanted other people to have it. Like, the Holy Spirit was changing me. Like, my desires were changing. Like I said, I didn't want to do Halloween anymore. And there's some things I just didn't want to do anymore like I used to. Like, and not to like put down my friends, but I just didn't want to do the same things they were into anymore. Like, we were getting to the age where people started experimenting and started smoking and all that, right? So I just didn't want to do those things anymore. So God blessed me with some people from school. They DM'd me on that Christian page. They were like, hey, do you go to such and such high school? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, we go there too. Like, we're making a group chat. Let's get together. And they were so great. Like, they really built me up, and we gave each other like biblical advice and held each other accountable. And it was great. So I had that. And then I had my mentor, Miss Linnea. It was great. And God wasn't done with me there. Like, everyone says your testimony is still being written, but really, like, it was. So when I got to my 11th grade year, my best friend Lily, she invited me to this camp. She was like, we're going to this Christian college for winter camp. And I was like, winter camp? Never heard of that. And she's like, it's in the mountains. And I was like, sorry to have to bring this in here, guys, but what does my black behind look like going to the mountains somewhere? Why would I do that? And she's like, come on. And I was like, all right, well, how much is it? And she was like, it's $100. And I was like, I don't have $100. And she was like, oh, I'll pay for you. I was like, oh. And she lives in New Jersey, and her church is in New Jersey. And she was like, and I'll drive to Maryland, and that's where I'm from Baltimore, y'all, born and raised. I'll pick you up and take you. And I was like, oh. So I called Miss Linnea. I'm like, I don't know, like, maybe it feels like I should go. And she was like, that's obviously God. If it's paid for and everything just set up, you can just go. So I go. And I've never really, I mean, when I heard about Christian colleges, all I heard about was racist country people. So I was like, what? I don't know if I want to go. And you weren't supposed to have a phone there, but I definitely snuck a phone in. I had like got my friend to give me an extra phone she had so I could turn that one in and keep mine, guys. Sorry. I'm admitting it. Sorry. So that's what I did. I got there, and one of my counselors got particularly close to, even though it was only a weekend trip. And so the first night they shared the gospel with us, and even though I already believed, like, it hit my heart in a different way. Like, I guess they explained in a way where it was more profound to me, like more meaningful. Like I really knew that I was in that moment that I really was a desperate sinner. Like, that's when I fully understood the gospel. Like, that's what, I guess, my first time hearing like a little more theology. Like, people share the good news on TikTok, but they don't get into the beginning. Like, they got into how Adam and Eve, God created them for a relationship with him. Like, I didn't really know that. I didn't know that he created man specifically to have a relationship with him. And he got into how that relationship was, damaged, and how we were separated from God. He even explained why people go to hell, that hell is the only place we can be separated from God. And if you live separated from God, which is with sin, then you die that way too. So physically you die and spiritually you die. And that made me realize how amazing Jesus was, like what he really was saving me from, like how I was quite literally doomed. Like, I was going to be doomed. I was doomed. So, not to add like bleakness to it, but that made me really appreciate what God did more, and they shared what Jesus did on the cross. I think the second night, like, I remember looking over and seeing my counselor crying when they were like just talking about what Jesus did on the cross, like what he went through for us. So, and that day I started to question, like I really want to make sure I believe in my heart, And my counselor that I told you about that I was particularly close with, she was like, you would do so well here. You ask such good questions. You should come to school here. And I was like, and I really felt like I belonged. And growing up, I got bullied a lot. In high school, it slowed down, but I was. And I never really felt like I fit in anywhere. Even I grew up dancing. I never felt like I fit in any of the dance settings I was in. So for once, I felt like I belonged somewhere. And I was like, I want to go. So I knew right then and there, my 11th grade year, I was going to this Bible college, and no one was stopping me. I didn't apply for any other colleges, y'all. And I was told there by some people, oh yeah, like a lot of people didn't have, what's my computer doing? They didn't have the money to afford it, but God provided it. So I already have faith in that. So when I got to my senior year, I didn't really do very much. Like, everyone did decision day and all that, and applied for a bunch of scholarships. I applied for a few, and I got a few from the school for some stuff, but it definitely wasn't enough. So I say a lot, sorry guys. So I got this scholarship opportunity where you could basically work at their summer camp and make, I think it was like $2,500 or something like that. Not passing that up, like, and I was like, it would be great to get to know people there already, so when I go to the actual school, I'll know people. So I get there, and I didn't really do much like worrying about finances until my mom started calling me saying, yeah, it's summer, like fall's gonna come as soon as you know it, and what are you gonna do about the money? And I was like, Mom, I've been telling you, like, God's gonna provide it. And she's like, that's not a good plan. And so I started to get anxious, and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of screwed actually. Like, what am I doing? Like, I don't have enough money. So I end up talking to this lady. She's the one who hired me. I think she's like a camp coordinator. Don't remember her job title, but I told her a little bit about my situation, and I told her how I wasn't really able to get in that much contact with my admissions counselor. So she was like, oh, I'll do something right now. So she emailed financial aid, and she was telling me that when I get to the school, so basically when you go there, you have to like do a service assignment, which is pretty much a job you do to serve the Lord. That can be like housekeeping, the maintenance team, working at the service desk, all that. But there's a role called a SEP role, which is pretty much like a student manager. It's a student leader. So those kids, they get like a $3,000 scholarship. So I remember when I went to the school for like a preview thing, they offered it, but I said, no, I don't need it. I should have done it. I was like, I don't want to do that extra work. I should have done it. So she was trying to see if there's any openings, and I was told there was none. There was none. And at this time, I was not in a good place in my relationship with God. Like, I was not. And I felt afraid to ask God for help. But I remember one night we did like a devotional, and the speaker was talking about how no matter what David did, like, he did all the worst things, but he still cried out to God eventually, and God helped him. So that night I literally cried in my bunk bed in my cabin. I was like, God, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have any money, and I really need your help. So, and he started answering. I wasn't seeing it until, like, now I can see how he did. But at the time I was like, what is God doing? What is God doing? I tried to call Sally Mae, get some loans. They're like, you don't have any credit, you can't get a loan. And my mom wasn't trying to co-sign because I didn't do well in high school. She was like, why am I, like, I'm not investing in that. And she always told me I'm not paying for school. And I just didn't know what I was going to do. And eventually I hear back, and they're like, actually, there is an opening for the SEP role for the admissions department. So I was like, yes, like, I will do the interview. So I'm like, God be with me, God be with me. And the interview, like, it wasn't that good, y'all. It wasn't that good. I was like, God, like, I was like, what was that? Like, I have a tendency when I get angry to blame God, which is wrong, but I'm being honest, guys. I'm like, God, what was that? Like, I thought you were going to be with me. Like, what happened with that? So I was like, maybe, like, miraculously, like, God, like, will still help me get the job, even though, like, I did not do a good job, the best job on the interview. And then I'm like getting all over the place, but every Thursday, wait, I forgot to say this. So I thought that pretty much, like, that job was going to be open door. Like, I thought that since it was shut before, they told me there was no room, I thought the admissions job was absolutely going to be my open door. Right. So, okay. Every Thursday, the people from, like, financial aid and admissions would come to the camp that I was working at. So the lady who helped me, like, get in contact with people, she was like, you need to go. So every Thursday I would go and try something new, and, like, just things weren't working out. Like, I tried to get a military thing because my father was in the military. And speaking of which, I tried to do GoFundMe, and one guy that I shared I don't know if I shared the gospel with him, but, like, I tried to, like, talk to him about Jesus, and he's still my friend to this day. He lives in Australia and everything, and he was like, you know what, since you did that, I really appreciate it. I will give you $19 for your GoFundMe. So see what happens, like, guys, when you plant seeds. Like, sometimes people will just bless you, you know what I mean? So I had $19, but that was it. And one of my older cousins heard about it, and she called me and she prayed over me. Some powerful prayer, y'all. But she was the one who told me about the military thing. So I tried to do that. Didn't work because my father, I think, there has to be within, like, 10 years of them leaving the military, and it was way too late. So I couldn't get that. I told you I couldn't get a loan. And just other things I couldn't do. And what ended up happening, guys? I forgot. Hold on. I'm losing my train of thought. I don't want to be like, So what happened? Right. Okay. So I'm at my post. I worked at the boat stop in the office on this camp. So I'm sitting by the boats, and someone tells me, oh, the lady who interviewed you for admissions, she wants to see you. Oh, wait, guys, I forgot a huge part. I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. So basically, one day when nothing worked out with admissions, I cried to the financial guy, and I was like, I don't have anything. I don't know what to do. I have nothing. I don't know what to do. I don't have enough. Like, I didn't even make you can have, like, there's an $8,000 scholarship cap, so you can't make more than that. I didn't even have $8,000. I didn't even reach the cap, and they told me that most students always make the cap. I didn't make the cap. So, and I was getting mad and frustrated with God, like, come on, I thought you were going to be with me. So I tell him, I have nothing. I don't know what to do. I can't pay. And he was like, well, how much are you willing to pay? And I was like, I don't know. So I said, I have to go get my phone. So I run back to my work post to get my phone and call my mom. And she talks to him. He's like, give me a number. My mom gave him a number. He said, I can work with that. Yeah, right. Okay, so, like, a week later, he was gone on vacation, but his wife was the one who interviewed me. So, like, asked me to see her. She wants to meet me at the top of the hill. I'm asking my friend, like, do I look good? Like, do I look okay? Like, I want to look good. Like, in case she gets me a job, I got to look like, you know? So he's like, you look fine. So I'm thinking she's either going to tell me I got the job or I didn't. And if I got this job, it would help me reach that 3,000. Like, that 3,000 was all I needed to get to my $8,000 cap. So she tells me, someone donated, I forgot how many $1,000 to you, an anonymous donor. Your tuition number has been lowered to the number your mom said she could pay. Yeah, that's another thing. My mom agreed to pay finally, like, bam. So she was like, yeah, so we're lowering it to that number. So now you don't even need the admissions job because you reached the cap. That was so cool how God did that. Like, God overflowed me with blessings where I didn't even need the admissions job. Like, not even to like boast or anything, boasting in God, but you know what I mean? Like, it was an overflow. Like, it was bam, bam, bam. My mom changed her mind about paying because remember, she wasn't going to. Someone donated. Like, I reached the cap when I was not anywhere near it, and all of that. And I forgot to also mention that one day, this is before this, before like things started going boom, 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 y'all. Like, my friend asked me, do I want to go off campus with him to my Bible college has multiple camps. So he was like, let's go to the other one this weekend. We go to the wrong part, and we run into this random man, and he's like, oh, like, what are you guys like working here for? I'm like, well, I need tuition money. And he was like, oh, I want staff. I'll give you $1,000 right now. And he did. He emailed me a certificate. So I forgot about that part, guys. Yeah, so that's how I did it. Like, God blessed me. Like, and in those moments when I didn't know for sure, like, if I was gonna have the money, I would question God. I'd be like, God, is this even your plan? Like, I was losing faith. I was like, do you even want me here, man? Like, maybe I didn't pray enough about it and listen to you enough. Maybe I might have been supposed to be here, but I made it. Well, God pushed me there. I didn't make it myself. So now to backtrack, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but before I went to the summer camp there, I thought that I was going to go to this Bible college for a year. Like, well, you can stay for 1 year or 2 years, but I thought I was just going to do 1 year and then go back home to Baltimore and be an ultrasound tech, because, you know, growing up with a mom as a principal, my grandma's a therapist, and they were the first two women on that side of the family to go to college. So I was held to a high standard. People were like, you need to be getting a doctorate or a master's, or at least a bachelor's, but you really should get a master's. Be successful like them. And I always was a rebellious person. I still am. In a lot of ways, I like to be my own person about things. So when you tell me to do something, then I'm going to want to do the opposite. So I was like, no, I don't want to be like my mom. Like, I hated school growing up because she was a principal and she would get on me in the early stages of school. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want nothing to do with it. So ultrasound tech was like the next best thing to me, because it only took like 19 months of school and it was pretty good pay. So I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to this Bible college and I'm going to come back and do that. So, and people thought that was stupid. They're like, why can't you do ultrasound tech first and then do this? Because this Bible college is technically like a gap year. So I was like, no, like, this is what I'm doing. But I used to be a hypocrite and tell people, oh, Proverbs 16:33, you know, a man may cast a lot, but God determines where they fall. Like, you need to make sure you're depending on God and asking him what his plans are for your life. Like, but I wasn't doing it, y'all. Like, I would pray and be like, God, do you want me to do this? But then I would go right to sleep because I didn't want to hear the answer, right? But one day I started like saying like this over and over again to people. I was like, you know, I wonder what God actually wants for my life, because deep down I knew that's not what God wanted. And one day when I said it, the word biblical counselor came to my mind. I'm like, what in the world? I was like, nah. I was like, I literally said, that is too much work. No, too much school. And I had only heard about biblical counselors once in my life, and that was when I went with Lily's church to the camp, because there's a married couple there who are biblical counselors and they went to school for it. But I barely even knew what that was, y'all. So I was like, why is that on my mind? And like a couple more times it came up and I'm like, what? So this is actually my prayer chair, guys. Look at I've got a strawberry, I've got little blossoms. Anyway, I was like, God, like, I feel like you're trying to say something. Do you want me to do this? And I felt like he was saying yes. And I was like, what? God, like, you know how I did in school. You know I hate school. And why would I do this? So I'm like, all right, I'll give it a chance. I text my friend. I'm like, we're going to see God. I text my friend. Don't do that to God. But I texted my friend. And I was like, okay, what do I need to do to become a biblical counselor? And she was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you need your master's. And I was like, oh, no, God. No, God. No, 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 no. Like, you know that's funny. You know that's the joke. That's a joke, right? It's a joke. So I call two of my friends separately, and they both say the same thing. They're like, Amber, you're being Jonah right now. And I was just having a cow. I was laughing. I was like, no, no, no. I'm not Jonah. Like, why would I do that? And I felt convicted right then and there. So later on, I was like, okay. Like, I was refusing to address God about it after that. Like, I was avoiding, much like Jonah, running away, running the opposite direction. But I got back in my prayer chair, and I was like, okay, God. I think I might have written to him, because I used to write to God a lot. And then I prayed, and I think that's how it went. And I was like, I know some people don't recommend this, but I was like, God, I'm going to open my Bible, and whatever it goes to, was what you have to say. So I, open it. Tell me why it goes to Jonah. It went to Jonah. And it was like at the part where, Jonah did go to Nineveh, and he was mad that they were repentant and God wasn't going to destroy them. And he, God grew the plant over him, and then God had a worm eat it, and it died. And he was so mad. And God was like, do you have the right, Jonah, to be mad? And he was like, yeah, mad enough to die. And he was like, there are 100,000 people living in spiritual darkness in Nineveh. Shouldn't I feel bad for them? And he also says something like, should you be mad about a plant you didn't even put there? And it just it convicted me. I'm like, okay, should I be mad that God is calling me to help people that he created, his people, made in his image, right? And think about, that was in that time, a city with that many people was a lot. 100 and I forgot the number already, guys. But that's a lot of people to them. But imagine how many people live in Maryland, a lot bigger, even just in Maryland. There's a lot of people who are living in spiritual darkness in the world. I Googled it right after that, and I, just to see the statistics, and there's a lot of people who are depressed and feel hopeless, guys. So right then and there, I was like, all right, God, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. At least school sucks, but at least I know what you want. So on this, going back to the camp again, I met biblical counselors, obviously. One of the coordinators, or I think it's a coordinator, something like that. He was doing the internship they have in my Bible college, where you can do a 2-year internship under ACBC, which stands for Associated Biblical Counselors. Yeah. You could do that, and then they let you give 50% off of a bachelor's online for schools like Clark Summit and Liberty to get your biblical counseling degree thing. Why did I say thingy? So I thought that's what God wanted. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. That's how I'm gonna do it. And I'm like, I thought I was gonna stay 1 year, but obviously God wants me to stay for 2 years and then do 2 more years for the internship. I told my mom that, and she was happy because I was gonna go get a bachelor's at least. My grandma was finally proud of me. And so yeah, that's what I thought I was gonna do. And I appreciate so much the biblical foundation I got at Bible college. I am so grateful. I have gained so much Bible knowledge. There's still so much to learn, because you can read the Bible 10 million times, all throughout your life, and you can still pull something new. But this was amazing. I definitely have so much of a grounding now. I can inspect something and go, I can tell if something is biblical or not. I'm good at you know what I mean? Before, like I said, on TikTok, when I'll be on TikTok, I will fall for anything that somebody would slap the name Jesus on. But now, I can, I guess you say test the spirit. See, I can line things up with the Bible and see if that's true. My education I got at this college was such a blessing. But my mental health got pretty bad there. It did. It got pretty bad. And I was like, I can't do this again. I can't do another year, God. I can't. So I looked into other Bible colleges, and I actually had committed to Clark Summit thinking that's what God wanted, because the biblical counselors at Lily's church went there, and they gave me great insight about it. It sounded like a great school. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go. Pay my deposit and everything. But then my friend was like, why don't you try out this other college? So I'm not going to tell y'all where I go, okay? So she's like, why don't you just apply? I'm like, fine. The same time I was applying for, doing things for Clark Summit, she was like, just apply. I was like, this is stupid. I'm going to apply. Whatever. I got in, and I went on a college tour there before Clark Summit, actually, and I fell in love. So, I'm going to be getting my I'm doing like an accelerated master's thing. So I'm going to be getting my bachelor's in psychology and then doing an accelerated master's for clinical mental health counseling. And, I don't feel called to do any secular job. Like, I don't. So I'm going to take that license. And with it, you can declare yourself a master of whatever you want. So I already have part of my ACBC certification done. I did phase 1. So I have to do the other parts. I'm saying I'm a lot, sorry. So I think I'm just going to, go ahead with that degree, God willing, and just finish ACBC so that I can declare myself a master of biblical counseling. And I'm going to go about that. I don't know where God's going to send me after that. It's like a teacher of mine at my Bible college said to us, like, okay, you can see like a bunch of mountains, right? And you can see the peaks and the tops of the mountains, but you don't know what's in the valley between them. But God is with us. So I don't know what's going to be in the valley between this point in my life, the peak in my life I am in now, and then the other peak I'm looking at where I'm going to be some type of biblical counselor. I have no idea. I'm saying, oh my gosh, I'm gonna stop doing that, guys. I promise. I'm not gonna make a promise. I'm gonna try to stop, guys. That's all I can say. But that is the I'll say plan, like with hands like this, because I have no idea what's gonna happen. But that's what I'm up to now. I'm continuing my education and I'm learning psychology. Like, this class is psychology from a biblical worldview, which is what I appreciate, because yeah, there's definitely chemical imbalances, but there's also like sin also like involves mental health a lot. And I'm gonna tell you guys about this. I'm gonna be vulnerable here. I struggle with OCD, specifically religious OCD, which is called scrupulosity. And it was hard for me to get help for it. Like, even like some biblical counselors have never heard of that before. So the only resources I've ever seen were ones that were written, I wouldn't say ever seen, but mostly seen, were written by Christians themselves who have learned to live with it or overcome religious OCD. And I used to be mad at God for not delivering me from it, but I've discovered that God is allowing this for me so that I can help other people, because it's hard to help, like, for people outside, like, who don't think the way we think, to help you. So when I'm a biblical counselor, maybe I'll have a patient one day who struggles with it. Like, I didn't even know I had it. Like, for the longest time, I just thought it was crazy, y'all. Like, until I heard some other people start talking about it, and I finally opened up to my therapist at the time about it, and she was like, yeah, let's see. And yes, indeed, I was struggling with OCD, specifically religious OCD or scrupulosity. So that's something I'm interested in. And maybe one day, like, after I like take my psychology classes and my master's classes, maybe I'll do an episode about mental health and religious OCD and anxiety and things like that. But that's pretty much like God's story. My testimony is God's story. It's pretty much what God has done in my life so far. I have no idea, like, what else? Like, I'm just depending on him at this point. I really don't know where I'm going. I'm struggling with patience on some things. Like, guys, I want a boyfriend. Where's he at? Lord, where? Like, I'm hoping he'll be like alternative, maybe with a little brow piercing. He's like thrifty, he likes to thrift, likes indie music. Like, when I look at him, I hear the Smiths Back to the Old House playing, right? I'm getting off topic here, but that's pretty much like me. This is me. I hope you guys like get to know me. Well, you will. You'll get to know me more throughout the podcast. I'm just a girl here, guys. I don't know like where this is going to go, but I just want to encourage you guys to have a relationship with Jesus, because it doesn't have to be perfect, because you can clearly see mine is not. Like, especially with a religious OCD, guys, like, it's my view of God can be distorted sometimes. But I just want to encourage you guys. I want to be a light to your life. I want to have fun. And I also want to challenge you guys. Like, when I share things going on in the world, I want you to really think about, I don't know, I don't even know where I'm going with that. Just think about it. I want your hearts to be touched. I want you guys to get into critical thinking mode, moral thinking mode when we have our specific topic. So next episode is going to be about abortion. So we're jumping right in with it, guys. So all I can say for now is, before I go, so this is not my real logo, guys. I want to get a better camera, better microphone, and all of that. I'm saving up. But we're starting off humble, right? Like the first come last and last come first, right? So this is like a version of my logo. Like before I came up with the perfect one, this was it. It says truth or dare, but it's supposed to be truth and dare. But you'll see my real logo on the thumbnail or something like that. But soon I'm gonna replace this and get it bigger so we can have like the whole background covered and it can just be like a lot nicer. But I'm using a lamp right now. Humble beginnings. A lamp, I took the shade off so it could be like more bright. But we'll get like better stuff soon, and you'll see my real logo sometime soon. So to God be the glory for whatever may happen with this podcast. And I would just pray that you guys can help me to not yearn for the microphone, but yearn to please God in this. And I just remain humble, and that just pray that this does well. Pray that even if it doesn't get a bunch of followers, that I don't crave that, and that it can just touch at least one soul. So yeah, thank you for watching. To God be the glory. Bye guys.